Lo, the glory of the kings of the people of the Spear Danes in days of old we have heard tell, how those princes did deeds of valor, oft shield-shaven robbed the house of foemen, many peoples, of the seats where they drank their mead, laid fear upon men, he who first was found forlorn. Comfort that he lived to know, mighty grew under heaven, throve in honor until all that dwelt nigh about, over the sea where the whale rides, must hearken to him and yield him tribute. A good king was he. To him was an heir afterwards born, a young child in his courts whom God sent for the comfort of the people, perceiving the dire need which they long while endured aforetime, being without a prince. To him therefore the Lord of life, who rules in glory, granted honor among men. Beowulf was renowned. Far and wide his glory sprang, the heir of Shield and Skedland. Thus doth a young man bring it to pass with good deed and gallant gifts, while he dwells in his father's bosom, that after in his age there cleave to him loyal knights of his table, and the people stand by him when war comes. By worthy deeds in every folk is a man ennobled. Then at his allotted hour Shield the valiant passed into the keeping of the Lord, and to the flowing sea his dear comrades bore him, even as he himself had bidden them, while yet their prince, he ruled the Shieldings with his words. Beloved lord of the land, long was he master. There at the haven stood with ringed prow, ice-hung, eager to be gone, the prince's bark. They laid then their beloved king, giver of rings, in the bosom of the ship, in glory by the mast. There were many precious things and treasures brought from regions far away, nor have I heard tell that men ever in more seemly wise arrayed a boat with weapons of war and harness of battle. On his lap lay treasures heaped that now must go with him far into the dominion of the sea. With lesser gifts no whit did they adorn him, with treasures of that people, than did those that in the beginning set him forth alone over the waves, a little child. Moreover, high above his head they set a golden standard, and gave him to ocean, but the sea bare him. Sad was their heart and mourning in their soul. None can report with truth, nor lords in their halls, nor mighty men beneath the sky, who received that load. Then in the strongholds long was Beowulf of the Shieldings, beloved king of men, renowned among peoples. Elsewhere had the prince's father departed from his home, until thereafter he begat Halfdana the High, who held the lordship while he lived, aged and fierce in war, over the fair Shieldings. To him were children four born in the world, in order named, captain of the hosts, J.R.R, and Hrothgar, and Helga the Good. And a daughter I have heard that was Onala's queen, dear consort of the warrior Shilfing. Thereafter was fortune in war vouchsafed to Hrothgar, and glory in battle, that the vassals of his own kindred hearkened willingly unto him, and the numbers of his young warriors grew into a mighty company of men. Then it came into his heart that he would command men to fashion a hall and mansion, a mightier house for their mead drinking than the children men had ever known, and there within would he apportion all things to young and old such as God had granted him, save the people's land and the lives of men. Then have I heard that far and wide to many a kindred on this middle earth was that work proclaimed, the adorning of that dwelling of men. In a while, swiftly among men, it came to pass for him that it was all made ready, the greatest of houses and of halls. For it he devised the name of Herod, even he whose word far and wide was law. His vow he belied not, the rings he dealt and treasure at the feast. The hall towered high with horned gables wide, awaiting the warring billows of destroying fire. The time was not far off that between father and daughter's spouse murderous hate in memory of a deadly feud should awake again. Then the fierce spirit that abode in darkness grievously endured a time of torment, and that day after day he heard the din of revelry echoing in the hall. There was the sound of harp and the clear singing of the minstrel. There spake he that had knowledge to unfold from far-off days the first beginning of men, telling how the Almighty wrought the earth, a veil of bright loveliness that the waters encircle. How triumphant he set the radiance of the sun and moon as a light for the dwellers in the lands, and adorned the regions of the world with boughs and with leaves. Life, too, he devised for every kind that moves and lives. Even thus did the men of that company live in mirth and happiness, until one began to work deeds of wrong, a fiend of hell. Grendel was that grim creature called, the ill-famed haunter of the marches of the land, who kept the moors, the fastness of the fens, an unhappy one, inhabited long while the troll-kind's home, for the Maker had prescribed him with the race of Cain. That bloodshed, for that Cain slew Abel, the eternal Lord avenged. No joy had he of that violent deed, but God drove him for that crime far from mankind. Of him all evil broods were born, ogres and goblins and haunting shapes of hell, and the giants too, that long time warred with God, for that he gave them their reward. Then went Grendel forth when night was come to spy on that lofty house, to see how the ring-danes after the ale-drinking had ordered their abode in it. And he found therein a lordly company after their feasting-sleeping. Sorrow they knew not, the unhappy fate of men. That accursed thing, ravenous and grim, swift was ready. 30 nights he seized upon their couch. Thence back he got him gloating over his prey, faring homeward with his glut of murder to seek his lairs. Thereafter, at dawn, with the first light of day, was Grendel's strength in battle made plain to men. Then was weeping after feasting upraised, a mighty cry and mourn. The glorious king, their prince proven of old, joyless sat. His stout and valiant heart suffered and endured sorrow for his knights. When men had scanned the footprints of that foe, that demon cursed, too bitter was that strife, too dire and weary to endure. Nor was it longer space than but one night ere he wrought again the cruel murders more, and grieved not for them, his deeds of enmity and wrong, too deep was he therein. Thereafter, not far to seek was the man who elsewhere more remote sought him his couch in a bed among the lesser chambers, since now was manifested and declared thus truly to him, with token plain, the hatred of that hall-keeper. Thereafter, he who escaped the foe kept him more distant and more safe. Even thus did one lord it and against right make war, alone against them all, until empty stood that best of houses. Long was the while. 12 winters' space the Scyldings' dear lord endured anguish and every woe and sorrow deep. So it was made known to men and revealed to the children of mankind sadly in songs, that Grendel strove a while with Hrothgar, wrought hate and malice, evil deeds and enmity, for many a year, a strife unceasing. Truce would he not have with any man of the Danish host, nor would withhold his deadly cruelty, nor accept terms of payment, and there no cause had any of the counselors to look for golden recompense from the slayer's hands. Nay, the fierce killer pursued them still, both knights and young, a dark shadow of death, lurking, lying in wait, in long night keeping the misty moors. Men know not whither sorcerers of hell in their wanderings roam. Thus many a deed of evil that foe of men stalking dreadfully alone did often work, many a grievous outrage. In Herod's hall bright with gems in the dark nights he dwelt. Never might he approach the precious throne of grace in the presence of God, nor did he know his will. That was great torment to the Scyldings' lord, anguish of heart. Many a mighty one sat oft communing. Counsel they took what it were best for stout-hearted men to do against these dire terrors. At times they vowed sacrifices to idols in their heathen tabernacles. In prayers implored the Slayer of souls to afford them help against the sufferings of the people. Such was their wont, the hope of heathens. They were mindful in their hearts of hell, nor knew they the Creator, the judge of deeds, nor had they heard of the Lord God, nor verily had learned to praise the guardian of the heavens and the King of glory. Woe shall be to him that through fiendish malice shall thrust down his soul into the fire's embrace, to look for no comfort, in no wise to change his lot. Blessed shall be he that may after his death day go unto the Lord and seek peace in the bosom of the Father. Even thus over the sorrows of that time did the son of Halfdanna brood unceasingly. Nor could that wise prince put aside his grief. Too strong was that strife, too dire and weary to endure, that he had come upon that folk, torment fierce and cruel that they needs must bear, the greatest of miseries that came by night. Of this, of Grendel's deeds, The knight of Higelac, esteemed among the gates, heard in his home afar, in that day of man's life here in might the strongest of mankind was he, noble and of stature beyond man's measure. He bade men prepare for him a good craft upon the waves, saying that over the waters where the swan rides he would seek the warrior king, that prince renowned, since he had need of men. With that voyage little fault did wise men find, dear though he were to them. They encouraged his valiant heart, and they observed the omens. Champions of the people of the Geats, that good man had chosen from the boldest that he could find, and 15 in all they sought now their timbered ship, while that warrior, skilled in the ways of the sea, led them to the margins of the land. Time passed on. Afloat upon the waves was the boat beneath the cliffs. Eagerly the warriors mounted the prow, and the streaming seas swirled upon the sand. Men-at-arms bore to the bosom of the ship with their bright harness, their cunning gear of war. They then, men on a glad voyage, thrust her forth with her well-joined timbers. Over the waves of the deep she went sped by the wind, sailing with foam at throat most like unto a bird, until in due hour upon the second day her curving beak had made such way that those sailors saw the land, the cliffs beside the ocean gleaming, and sheer headlands and capes thrust far to sea. Then for that sailing ship the journey was at an end. Thence the men of the wind-loving folk climbed swiftly upon the beach, and made fast the sea-borne timbers of their ship. Their mail shirts they shook, their raiment of war. They gave thanks to God that the passage of the waves had been made easy for them. Then from the high shore the watchmen of the Scyldings, who of duty guarded the cliffs by the sea, saw them bearing over the gangway bright shields and gallant harness. Anxiety smote him in his heart to learn what these men might be. He went then to the strand riding on his horse, Hrothgar's knight, and mightily he brandished in his hands his stout spear shaft, and in words of parley he asked, "What warriors are ye, clad in corslets, that have come thus steering your tall ship over the streets of the sea, hither over deep waters?" "Lo, I long while have dwelt at the ends of the land, keeping watch over the water, that in the land of the Danes no foeman might come harrying with raiding fleet. Never have armed men more openly here essayed to land, knowing not at all the password of men in array of war, nor having the consent of kinsmen. Never have I seen on earth a greater among men than is one of you, a warrior in arms. No hall servant is he in brave show of weapons, if his fair countenance lie not in his peerless mien. Now must I learn of what people you are sprung, rather than ye should pass on hence, false spies, into the land of the Danes. Come now, ye dwellers afar, voyagers of the sea, hear my thought plainly spoken. In haste it is best that ye declare whence your ways have led." To him then the chief made answer, the leader of the company, opened his store of words. "We are by race men of the Geats, and hearth commands of Higelac. Famed among peoples was my father, a noble warrior in the forefront of battle. Edgetheol he was called. Many a winter he endured ere in age he depart from his courts. Full well doth every wise man remember him far and wide over the earth. With friendly purpose are we now come seeking thy master, the son of Helfdena, defender of his people. Be thou kindly in counsel to us. A mighty errand we have to him renowned, the lord of the Danes, and there a certain matter shall not be kept secret, as I think. Thou knowest, if so it be, as in truth we have heard tell, that among the Scyldings I know not what deadly thing, a doer of deeds of secret hatred, on dark nights in dreadful wise makes plain his monstrous malice, shame of men, and felling of the dead. Concerning that with ungrudging heart I can give counsel to Hrothgar, how he, wise and good, will overcome his enemy. Should there ever come change or betterment in the torment of his woes, how those burning griefs will be assuaged, or else forever after he will endure a time of tribulation and dire need, while there is in its high place abides the best of houses." The watchman spake, sitting there upon his steed, fearless servant of the king. "A man of keen wit who takes good heed will discern the truth in both words and deeds. My ears assure me that here is a company of friendly mind towards the lord of the Scyldings. Go ye forward, bearing your weapons and your armor. I will guide you. My young esquires, moreover, I will command honorably to guard your ship, your new tarred vessel upon the sand, against every foe, until with its timbers and its wreathed prow it bears back again over the streams of the sea its beloved master to the weather mark. To such a doer of good deeds it shall surely be granted that he will come sound and whole through this onset of war. They went then marching forth. Their fleet vessel remained now still. Deep-bosomed ship, it rode upon its hawser fast to the anchor. Figures of the boar shone above cheek guards, adorned with gold, glittering, fire-tempered. Fierce and challenging war-masks kept guard over life. The men hastened striding together until they could descry the builded hall adorned bright with gold. Foremost it was in fame of all houses under heaven among the dwellers upon earth, wherein the mighty one abode. The light of it shone over many a land. Then that warrior bold pointed out to them, clear to see, the court of proud men, that they might march straight thither. Then that warrior turned his horse, and thereupon spake these words: Time it is for me to go. May the Almighty Father in His grace keep you safe upon your quests. To the sea will I go, against unfriendly hosts my watch to keep. The street was paved in stone patterns. The path guided those men together. There shone corslet of war, hard, hand-linked, bright ring of iron rang in their harness, as in their dread gear they went striding straight unto the hall. Weary of the sea, they set their tall shields, bucklers wondrous hard against the wall of the house, and sat then on the bench. Corslets rang, war harness of men. Their spears stood piled together, seaman's gear, ash-hafted, grey-tipped with steel. Well furnished with weapons was the iron-mailed company. There then a knight in proud array asked those men of battle concerning their lineage. Whence bear ye your plated shields, your grey shirts of mail, your masked helms, and throng of warlike shafts? I am Hrothgar's herald and servant. Never have I seen so many men of outland folk more proud of bearing. I deem that in pride, not in the ways of banished men, nay, in greatness of heart he have come seeking Hrothgar. To him then, strong and bold, the proud prince of the wind-loving folk replied. Words he spake in answer, stern beneath his helm. We are companions of Hygelac's table. Beowulf was my name. To the son of Halfdan, our glorious king, I wish to tell mine errand to thy lord, if he will vouchsafe to us that we may approach him in his excellence. Wulfgar spake. Noble prince of the Wendels was he. His heart's temper, his prowess and wisdom, were known to many a man. This I will inquire of the friend of the Danes, lord of the Scyldings, giver of rings, concerning thy quest, even as thou prayest, and such answer quickly declare to thee as he in his goodness is minded to give. Then swiftly he returned to where Hrothgar sat, old and hoar-headed, amid his company of knights. Valiant he strode until he stood by the shoulder of the lord of the Danes. Well he knew the customs of courtly men. Wulfgar spake to his beloved lord. Here are now landed, come from afar over the encircling sea, noble men of the gates. The chiefest of them men of arms named Beowulf. They beg to exchange words with thee, my king. Do not make denial to them of thy fair answer, O gracious Hrothgar. In their harness of war they seem well to merit the esteem of men. Assuredly a man of worth is the captain, who hath led these men of battle to this land. Hrothgar spake, protector of the Scyldings. I knew him while he was yet a boy. His sire of old was called Ecgtheow. To him Hrethel of the Gates gave his bride his only daughter. It is his son that has now here come dauntless seeking a friend and patron. Voyagers by sea, such as have borne gifts and treasures for the Gates, thither in token of goodwill, have since reported that he hath in the grasp of his hand the might and power of 30 men, valiant in battle. Holy God hath sent him to us in his mercy, even to the West Danes, as is my hope against the terror of Grendel. To this good knight I shall offer precious gifts to reward the valor of his heart. Make haste now. Bid them enter here and look upon the proud company of Arcane here gathered together. Tell them too in words of greeting that they are welcome to the people of the Danes." Then Wulfgar went to the door of the hall, and, standing within, he pronounced these words: "My victorious lord, chieftain of the East Danes, bade me to say to you that he knows your lineage, and that with your dauntless hearts ye come as welcome guests to him over the surges of the sea. Now may ye go in your harness of battle beneath your masked helms to look upon Hrothgar. Leave here your warlike shields and deadly shafted spears to wait the issue of your words." Then that lordly man arose, and about him many a warrior, a valiant company of knights. Some remained behind, guarding their gear of war, even as the bold captain commanded. They went with speed together, the knight guiding them, beneath the roof of Heorot. Stern beneath his helm strode Beowulf, until he stood beside the hearth. Words he spake, his mail gleamed upon him, woven like stuff in crafty web by the cunning of smiths. "Hail to thee, Hrothgar! I am Higelac kinsman and vassal. On many a renowned deed I ventured in my youth. To me on my native soil the matter of Grendel became known and revealed. Travelers upon the sea report that this hall, fairest of houses, stands empty and to all men useless, as soon as the light of evening is hid beneath heaven's pale. Thereupon the worthiest of my people and wise men counseled me to come to thee, King Hrothgar. For they had learned the power of my body's strength. They had themselves observed it, when I returned from the toils of my foes, earning their enmity, where 5 I bound, making desolate the race of monsters, and when I slew amid the waves by night the water demons, enduring bitter need, avenging the afflictions of the wind-loving gates, destroying those hostile things, woe they had asked for. And now I shall with Grendel, with that fierce slayer, hold debate alone with the ogre. Now therefore will I ask of thee, Prince of the glorious Danes, defender of the Scyldings, this one boon, that thou deny not to me, O protector of warriors, fair lord of peoples, since I have come from so far away, that only I may, in my proud company of men, this dauntless company, make Heorot clean. I have learned, too, that this fierce slayer in his savagery to weapons gives no heed. I too then will disdain, so love me Higelac, my liege lord, to bear either sword or wide shield, yellow-bossed, to battle. Nay, with my gripe I shall seize upon the foe, and engage in mortal contest with hate against hate. There to the judgment of the Lord shall he resign himself whom death doth take. Methinks he will, if he is permitted to have the mastery, in this hall of battle devour without fear the Gothic knights, the strong band of Hrethmen, as he oft hath done. No need wilt thou have in burial to shroud my head, but he will hold me reddened with gore if death takes me. A bloody corse will bear, will think to taste it, and departing alone will eat unpitying, staining the hollows of the moors. No need wilt thou have any longer to care for my body's sustenance. Send back to Higelac, should battle take me, the mail shirt most excellent that fends my breast, fairest of raiment. Hrethel bequeathed it, the work of Wayland. Fate goeth ever as she must. Hrothgar made answer, protector of the Scyldings. My friend Beowulf, from my deserts into the grace that once I showed thou hast now come to us. Thy father with the sword ended one of the greatest feuds. Hitholaf with his own hands he slew among the Wylfings. Then the kindred of the Wedras could no longer keep him for the dread of war. Thence he sought the South Danish folk over the surges of the sea, even the glorious Scyldings, when first I ruled the people of the Danes and in youth governed a spacious realm, treasury, and stronghold of mighty men. Hrothgar was then dead, mine elder brother. No longer lived the son of Helfdena. Better was he than I. Thereafter that feud I settled with payment, sending to the Wylfings over the backs of the sea ancient treasure. Oaths he swore to me. Grievous to my heart is it to recount to any among men what humiliations inherit, what dreadful deeds of malice Grendel hath wrought for me in the hatred of his heart. Diminished is the company of my hall, the ranks of my warriors. Fate hath swept them into the dire clutch of Grendel. God alone may easily hinder from his deeds that savage foe. Full often have champions of war flushed with drink of the goblets of ale made fought, that in the drinking hall they would meet the warlike might of Grendel with the terror of their blades. Thereafter was this mead hall, my royal house, on the morrow tide red with dripping blood when day shone forth. All the benchboards drenched with blood, and the hall with dew of swords. The fewer loyal hearts and bold men tried in war had I, for death had taken them. Sit now at the feast, and when the time comes, turn thy thought to victory for the Hrethmen, as thy heart may urge thee. Then for the young Geatish knights, together in company, a bench was made free in the drinking hall. There to their seats went those stout of heart resplendent in their strength. An esquire his office heeded, he that bore in hand the jewelled ale goblet, and poured gleaming out the sweet drink. Ever and anon the minstrel sang clear and herot. There was mirth of mighty men, no little assembly of the tried valor of Danes in Winterus. Unferth spake, son of Ecglaf, who sat at the feet of the Lord of the Scyldings. A spell to bring forth strife he loosed. The quest of Beowulf come thus boldly over the sea, gave to him great displeasure, for it was not to his liking that any other man in this world below should ever accomplish more honour under heaven than he himself. Art thou that Beowulf who strove with Breca in swimming upon the wide sea, that time when ye two in pride made trial of the waters, and for a rash vaunt hazarded your lives upon the deep? No man, friend nor foe, could dissuade you two from that venture fraught with woe, when with limbs ye rode the sea. There ye embraced with your arms the streaming tide, measuring out the streets of the sea with swift play of hands, gliding over the ocean. The abyss was in tumult with the waves and the surges of the winter. 7 nights ye two labored in the water's realm. He overmatched thee in swimming. He had greater strength. Then on the morrow tide that billows bore him up away the Hithoriamus land, whence he, beloved of his people, sought his own dear soil, the land of Brandings, in his fair stronghold, where folk he ruled, his strong town and his rings. All his vaunts truly did he, the son of Beornstan, accomplish against thee. Wherefore I expect for thee a yet worse encounter, though thou mayest in every place have proved valiant in the rush of battle and grim war, if thou darest all the night-long hour nigh at hand to wait for Grendel. Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. Lo, my friend Unferth, flushed with drink thou hast spent much speech, telling of Breca and his feat. Truth I account it that greater prowess in the sea had I, more labour in the waves than any other man. We two agreed, being boys, and made our vaunt, being yet both in the youth of life, that we would hazard our lives out upon the ocean, and that we accomplished even so. Naked we held our swords, hard in our hands, when we two rode the sea. We thought thus to defend us against monstrous fish. Never at all could he swim away from me afar upon the streaming waves, more swift than I upon the deep. From him I would not go. Then we two were together in the sea 5 nights' space, until the tide drove us asunder in the boiling waters. The coldest of storms, glooming night, a wind from the north came with cruel onslaught against us. Rough were the waves. The hearts of the fishes of the sea were stirred, and there the corslet on my flesh, links stoutly wrought by hand, gave me aid against my foes. My woven raiments of battle lapped my breast adorned with gold. To the abyss drew me a destroying foe accursed. Fast the grim thing held me in its gripe. None the less it was granted to me to find that fell slayer with point of warlike sword. The battle's onset destroyed that strong beast of the sea through this my hand. Thus many a time deadly assailants menaced me grievously. With my beloved sword I ministered to them, as it was meet. In no wise had they joy in that banqueting, foul doers of ill deeds, that they should devour me sitting round and feast nigh to the bottoms of the sea. Nay, upon the morrow they lay upon the shore on the flotsam of the waves, wounded with sword thrusts, by blades done to death, so that never thereafter might they about the steep straits molest the passage of seafaring men. Light came from the east, God's beacon bright. The waves were lulled, so that I could descry the headlands out to sea and windy cliffs. Fate oft saveth a man not doomed to die, when his valor fails not. Howbeit it was my lot with sword to slay 9 sea demons. Never have I heard beneath the vault of heaven of more bitter fighting by night, nor of a man more unhappy in the torrents of the sea, and none the less from the grappling of accursed creatures. My life I saved weary of my venture. Then the sea, the tide upon the flood, with boiling water swept me away to the land of the Finns. Never have I heard men tell of thee any such cruel deeds of war and dreadful work of swords. Brecca never yet in the play of battle, nay, neither of you twain, hath accomplished so daring a deed with blood-stained blades. Yet little do I glory in it. Not though thou wert the slayer of thine own brethren, thy nearest kin. For that thou shalt in hell suffer damnation, though thy wit be good. I tell thee for a truth, son of Ecglaf, that never would Grendel have achieved so many a deed of horror, fierce slayer and dire, in thy lord's despite, humbling him inherit, if they heart and soul were thus fell in war as thou thyself accountest. Nay, he hath found that he need not greatly dread avenging wrath, nor dire pursuit of swords from your people of the conquering Scyldings. Forced toll he levies, none he spares the folk of the Danes, but followeth his lust, slays and ravishes, for no vengeance looking from the Spear-Danes. But I shall now ere long in battle oppose to him the might and valor of the Geats. He will return who may, triumphant to the mead, when the light of the morning of the following day, the sun in the skiey robes, shines from the south over the children of men. Then a joyful hour was giver of rich gifts, grey-haired, bold in battle. Prince of the glorious Danes, he believed that succor was at hand. Shepherd of his people, he had discerned in Beowulf's words the moveless purpose of his mind. There was laughter of mighty men, the din of singing. Sweet were the words. Walchtheo went forth, Hrothgar's queen, mindful of courtesy. With gold adorned she greeted the men in the hall, and then the cup she offered, noble lady, first to the guardian of the East Danes' realm, and wished him joy at the ale quaffing and his liege's love. He, King victorious, in delight partook of feast and flowing bowl. Then the lady of the Helmings went to and fro to every part of that host, to tried men and young preferring the jeweled vessels, until in due time it chanced that she, ring-laded queen of courteous heart, to Beowulf bore the cup of mead, and hailed the Geatish knight, and gave thanks to God in words of wisdom that her desire was granted to her, that she might trust in any man for comfort in their miseries. That cup he then received, grim warrior at Walchtheo's hand, and thereupon his heart being kindled with the desire of battle, fair words he said. Thus Beowulf, son of Ecglaf, spake. This did I purpose when I went up upon the sea and sat me in my sea-boat amid my company of knights, that I wholly would accomplish the desire of your people, would fall among the slain fast in the clutches of the foe. A deed of knightly valor I shall achieve, or else in this mead hall await my latest day. These words well pleased that lady, the proud utterance of the Geat. With gold adorned she went, fair queen of the people, to her seat beside her lord. Then again as before were valiant words spoken within the hall. The host was in joyful hour. There was clamour of folk triumphant, until, on a sudden, the son of Healfdene desired to seek his knightly couch. He knew that onslaught against that lofty hall had been purposed in the demon's heart from the hours when they could see the light of the sun, until darkling night and the shapes of mantling shadow came gliding over the world, dark beneath the clouds. All the host arose. Then man saluted man, Hrothgar and Beowulf. All hail, the king him wished, giving to him the keeping of his house of wine. In this word he spake. Never have I ere this, since I could lift hand and shield, to any other man save thee here and now entrusted the mighty dwelling of the Danes. Have it now and hold it, fairest of houses. Remember thy renown, show forth thy might and valor, keep watch against our foes. No lack shall there be to thee of thy desires, if thou dost achieve this deed of valor and yet live. Then Hrothgar departed, defender of the Scyldings, with his company of knights forth from the hall. Their warrior lord would follow Wouchtheo his queen as the companion of his couch. The King of Glory, as men now heard, had appointed one to guard the hall against Grendel. Now a special office he held in the service of the Danes, having taken on himself a watch amongst monstrous things. Verily the Geatish knight trusted confidently in his valiant strength. God's grace to him. Then his corslet of iron things he doffed, and the helm from his head, and gave his jewelled sword, best of iron-wrought things, to his esquire, and bade him have care of his gear of battle. Then the brave man spake, Beowulf of the Gates, a speech of proud words, ere he climbed upon his bed. No whit do I count myself in my warlike stature, a man more despicable in deeds of battle than Grendel doth himself. Therefore I will not with sword give him the sleep of death, although I well could. Not doth he know of gentle arms that he should wield weapon against me, or hew my shield, fierce though he be in savage deeds. Nay, we too shall this night reject the blade, if he dare have recourse to warfare without weapons. And then let this foreseeing God, the Holy Lord, adjudge the glory to whichever side him seemeth meet. Then he laid him down, that valiant man, and his face was buried in the pillow at his cheek. And about him many a gallant rover was stretched upon his couch within the hall. None of them believed that he would ever return to the sweetness of his home, to the strong places of the free people where he was nurtured. Nay, they had learned that a bloody death had ere now in that hall of wine swept away all too many of the Danish folk. Yet God granted them a victorious fortune in battle, even to those Geatish warriors, yea, succor and aid, that they, through prowess of one and through his single might, overcame their enemy. Manifest is this truth, that mighty God hath ruled the race of men through all the ages.